Hi, everyone. I'm Ilona Varo. Thank you for joining me in the Thrive Through the Holidays podcast. I'm here with my good friend and colleague, Robyn Goldberg, and we are going to be chatting about the nutritional side of how to navigate the holidays. Robyn, if you'd like to give us a little intro of yourself and your work.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me, Alana. My name
Yes.
is Robyn Goldberg. I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist and a certified eating disorder supervisor and consultant. And I'm in private practice coming on 28 years in Los Angeles, where I see kids, teens, adults with body image issues, eating disorders, and medical issues. And I think this is such a great and important topic to discuss because the holidays can bring up so many feelings for all of us, some better than others. And I think it's important that we can create some tools together during this trying time since it's
Yeah.
very food focused.
Yeah, absolutely. What kinds of things are you seeing in your practice? Are you seeing any themes around challenges for clients?
Well, one of the things I think that's so big is there's oftentimes like obligation to be with family or chosen family or where to go for support. And that's really been the topic because I have many clients that just want to run away from the holidays and not have anything to do with it. But even, for example, I was at the dry cleaners this morning and it's like, you hear Christmas music. I mean, there's no way to avoid it. It's everywhere from billboards to music to, funny, ugly holiday sweaters that people wear. It's just everywhere. And I think it brings up like, oh, there's that recipe we haven't made since last year, or I'm going to a friend's potluck and I hear people just talk about like they want it all to go away. And I think having community, having people and support is important when it's your chosen. That I think can make it more tolerable. But these are just topics that have been coming up amongst clients.
Yeah. So a desire to avoid and have it be done with, be on the other side of it.
Yeah, when there can be a pleasant side of it, but I think when you're seeing someone like me who struggles with an eating disorder or disordered eating, it can be a lot because it's like from going from the avoidance of food or eating to soothe to this is what people talk about all the time. And the other part I hear is like, well, you know what? It'll be easier to address my binge eating disorder because we're all binging over the holidays. It's like, not necessarily, but I'll have clients perceive that they won't be, they won't have the attention brought on them if they're quote unquote, reaching a higher fullness level or they find themselves mindlessly eating because it's like, it's okay because we all binge on the holidays. That's like been normalized.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that does so much damage, the normalization of, normalizing disordered behavior and making fun of it and joking around it. And, the conversation that's come up a lot with these podcasts are the, restriction so that you can save up and have room for meals later on, and how people kind of take pride in that and feel better about what they eat if they've restricted earlier in the day. Obviously, we would never advise that, but can you kind of go into maybe more detail or skill around how to talk to yourself when there is that pressure of, don't eat too much because we've got big Christmas dinner coming up? Like, what's the self-talk that you support clients around?
Things I tell clients is it's important to not skip a meal and telling yourself your body is worthy and deserving to be able to have a breakfast, a lunch, a dinner, even if the times are altered for Christmas, for Hanukkah dinner, Hanukkah brunch, Kwanzaa, being able to not skip a meal, because I think skipping a meal is an increased way to set you up to binge and to zone out, but also not setting rules for yourself. Like, I'm only eating protein in the earlier part of the day because there's going to be so many carbohydrates, or I can only, be on a juice cleanse leading up to the holiday. I think one of the best favors you could do for yourself is not create rules and negotiations, such as, well, I'm going to eat such and such later, so I'm going to tag on an extra mile in my run because I know I'll be eating such and such. Sort of like how to quiet that chatter and say, well, let me think about in day-to-day life, foods I like, foods I know that physically fill me up and emotionally gratify me. And yes, there's going to be a lot of abundance of fun foods available, but not feeling, I think this is the other trap we fall into is like, well, it's only once a year. I can only have dressing or mashed potatoes. Well, you can have it anytime you want. You can make it anytime you want. It doesn't have to be the big, famous recipe, but I think sometimes we put these foods on a pedestal. Like I'll say, you know what? Like I was just discussing with my client last night. I love pumpkin pie. I eat it all year round. There's 2 places I know that sell it all year round. I buy it all year round. And not that I don't look forward to it Thanksgiving because it's like one of my favorite desserts. But I think some of these foods we don't see regularly. So therefore we put so much stock in like, okay, if I'm going to have this and I'm not going to have that. And I think if you could do yourself a favor and not say, well, if I'm having this at this time, I won't have this at that time, because that's a way to get into the restrict binge mentality.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest downfall that I see too in my clients is putting things on a pedestal, the all or nothing thinking, and just the forbidden foods that all year round you're not seeing. And then all of a sudden they hold so much power over you because, your brain hasn't been familiarized with it. And so it just feels like this kind of threatening choice. So yeah, familiarity, making sure it's in the rotation, that's definitely a great tool.
Well, and also I think being able to remind yourself, it's just food. It's just food versus making it sound so special and unique and taboo and having shame for when you give yourself permission to have it, and being able to recognize and telling yourself it's normal to have cravings and it's normal to eat these foods more than once a day, especially when the abundance is there over the holidays. So if you're going to a Hanukkah brunch and a Christmas dinner the same day, you might find, okay, you know what? I'm having the potato latke in the morning, but at the Christmas dinner, I'm having scalloped potatoes, even though it's made a different way. It's okay to eat potatoes more than once a day. Or I was listening to a client that went to 3 Thanksgivings and he was talking about the dressing. He's like, well, I had dressing at the first, so I didn't want to have dressing and any other. I said, why not? I said, use it as an opportunity to see, well, let me see which dressing I like the best. I had it at 3 different meals versus
Yeah.
when we put these stipulations, like I can only have it here, I can't have it there, you're setting yourself up to have this all backfire.
Yeah. How do you help clients work through guilt? Because that's definitely something that comes up. And I mean, I get what you're saying. I hear what you're saying, but someone who's dealing with eating disorder or something like that, it's just food or my body deserves to eat, like those concepts, those, I know they take so much time and work. So are there any tools or practices for clients to try to get to that point and work through the guilt of, oh my God, I had sweets 2 days in a row, 3 days in a row, or something like that?
So one thing I like to say is, do you feel guilty when your body tells you it needs to go to the bathroom? Like, probably not. Think it's similar. Like, human bodies are not designed to eat one kind of food or one time during the day. And there are parts of just having a body that people don't recognize or accept is normal for having a body. So the more that we're telling ourselves we shouldn't eat such and such, the guilt will increase. So I think really trying to work on new narratives of saying, and by the way, and this is, I know, easier said than done. Like this could certainly backfire on a person. I always like to say overeating is progress from binging. So when you tell yourself, I had more black and white cookies, say, you know what? Okay, I'm having more black and white cookies. But I think if you can acknowledge it versus putting so much emotion in it, like I blew it, or I have to start over, or tomorrow I'm going to be quote unquote good, when you're putting these ultimatums and these, I'm going to say, statements that are a recipe for disaster,
Yeah.
the guilt will continue to be there and will increase worse and worse over time.
Yeah. So keeping it neutral as possible, observing.
Neutral. Yes, definitely keeping it neutral, but also being able to, the reason I started out asking, like, do you feel guilty when you have to go to the bathroom? It's like the same type of thing as with a dessert. Like, okay, maybe you were planning on having this at one party or at one meal and it happened another time. It's like things change, and learning how to go with the flow and be adaptable and flexible is another process that needs to be worked on to be able to reduce the feelings of guilt.
Yeah, definitely. And I think even giving yourself permission gives so much freedom. You can choose. Maybe I like the black and white cookies at one party and I didn't like them at the other. So thank goodness I had them at the first party, because okay, the second one, maybe they weren't as good. Maybe they
Yeah,
weren't for Nate nows.
well, and that's, yeah, that's right. And also, there's no rule that says, and this is a whole other topic, like once I start eating it, if I don't like it, I have to finish it. I have a
Yeah.
number of clients that struggle with like leaving food over even if they don't like it. And the standpoint of waste, messages that were presented when they grew up. So my philosophy is like, don't settle for breadcrumbs. If something's not delicious and amazing, there's no reason to finish it. And by the way, those people starving in other countries, are they going to benefit by your consumption of that food if you're not enjoying it?
Right, definitely. Are there any particular mindfulness skills? Because I know that slowing down, being present, just slowing down in general has been the theme for the holidays, and trying to be in the moment and make decisions based on your present moment need instead of expectations or pressure or what other people want. In regards to food and meals, are there any specific mindfulness practices that you like?
I like, as you and I were talking before about minimizing devices and technology, really having moments with yourself. If it means you're writing on a little card or putting notes, I'm old school. I like pens and papers versus let me look on my phone and see the notes I put. I say this because as reminders, it's like you're being prompted. I'm going to breathe. I'm just going to try to have these moments to embody myself and just check in to see how am I doing physically, emotionally, internally, and just be able to sit with that. I think before any type of food event, because otherwise we get sucked into the web of the chaos and become distracted. So I'm a big fan of just like scheduling an appointment with yourself before going to an event, before going on a call, a family, Zoom, being able to just have these moments to just pay attention to how you're feeling so you can develop a better interoceptive awareness when
Yeah.
you embark on food.
Yeah. Are there specific questions that you like to ask yourself or tell clients to ask themselves when they're checking in?
So some of the questions I like to ask is like, how am I feeling right now? Physically, emotionally, spiritually. Let me just rate on a scale of 1 to 10, my stress level, my energy level. And some people say like, oh, I can't ask these questions. I'll hear clients, oh, I feel fine. Feeling fine is to me like a push off. as opposed to really trying to get to the nitty gritty depths of, well, let me just do an inventory, like a body scan from head to toe, like even starting with, how's my head feeling? How's my heart feeling? How are my lips feeling? What are my hands saying to me? What's my belly saying? Just really literally going through all different parts of one's body. It's really, like you said before, Ilona, a way to slow down and not having distractions, no computer, no phone, no TV, just you and your body. And I know for many people that makes them feel anxious, not having background activity, but that's distracting. It's not a way to really develop this intimacy within yourself.
Yeah. And I always say, if obviously we're not going to have those perfect, peaceful, quiet moments, especially not during a holiday gathering, but excuse yourself, go to the bathroom, make washing your hands a very mindful activity. Look at yourself in the mirror, take some deep breaths, connecting to your own gaze and regulating your nervous system in that way. That's always the escape of, if you're not feeling great in the moment, just excuse yourself, go to the bathroom, get cold water or hot water on your hands. And that can be the mindfulness activity and check-in in itself.
Yeah, and I think even going outside to get some fresh air, excusing yourself from the environment so you can regroup with yourself.
Yeah. How do you see? I'm also a big fan of the five senses. So when we're eating, we're typically just going with taste, but also the smell, the texture, the sounds, how it sits in our body, how our body reacts to that first bite. What have you seen that practice do for clients when you are really engaging all the senses?
Well, when we're really paying attention to our sensory, this is like an interoceptive awareness I had touched upon. Maybe even starting out with like, let me just smell, what are all the different aromas that pass me by right here. I mean, that can be very inviting or a way to push one away. That can make us feel more compelled to eat a specific food, or also the presentation. I know, being married to a chef, Lana, you're probably able to admire presentation regularly, but I'll have clients say, I don't like cooking. I'm just eating out of a a takeout container or a paper plate. And I really like suggesting, like, putting the food on a plate, having a placemat, having some flowers or a centerpiece, making the environment inviting and intriguing. It doesn't have to be that you're at a formal event, but that could also help to calm our nerves too. And also texture. There's a lot of research that shows, like, when we're having different textures, assuming a person doesn't struggle with RFID, let's say, that's a greater way to establish satisfaction, like the crunch, the creaminess, the different flavors, something's sweet, something's spicy, something's bitter, something's chewy, really trying to embrace the different textures of the different foods.
Oh, nice. So the more variety in the texture and the quality of the meal, that tends to be more satisfying.
Definitely.
Cool. Awesome. I love that.
Yes.
Makes sense. As far as seasonal foods, are there anything in particular that you really love during this time that has maybe a really nice nourishing benefit on top of being delicious?
I love red curry squash.
Oh, okay.
It's in the family of like butternut squash, acorn squash, kombucha, but I love it because the skin is edible. I always say it looks like a tilted pumpkin.
Okay.
So that is one of my favorites. My other absolute favorite that anyone who sees me regularly knows I'm obsessed with, I love persimmons.
Okay.
All about the persimmons. I have not tried, so the crunchy persimmons, I really like the fuyu, as opposed to, there's a hamacha that is made into like persimmon bread, like banana bread or pumpkin bread or orange
Nice.
cranberry bread. I've not done that, but I would like to. Or persimmon cookies, that's the
Nice.
one that people bake with. And then I really love the color of pomegranate seeds and like rice dishes and stews and salads. And that's a great, it's power, it's a powerhouse source of antioxidants. I kind of feel like I force myself to eat pomegranate, but because I'm like, I love the way it looks, and it's very high on what's called the ORAC scale, from really being able to fight off free radicals and diseases and all types of medical concerns. So that's an important one to work in.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I love the passion of, seasonal foods. I'm so much a creature of habit, so I like to always hear like, what should we be eating right now?
Okay, cool. Hopefully you learned a few new things.
I did. I did. Well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. How can people find you if they want to learn more? You have an amazing book, you have a podcast. What's the hub
Thank
for you?
you. So my private practice website is askaboutfood.com. My book website is theeatingdisordertrap.com, but that funnels into askaboutfood.com. I have a podcast as well, which it's great that you've been on it, is the Eating Disorder Trap podcast. And my book, back here, actually, The Eating Disorder Trap, which
Yes.
is available Amazon, everywhere, Barnes and
Great.
Noble, and it's 4.5 years that it's been out, which is crazy.
I know, isn't
And
that
then my
crazy? Yeah,
Instagram is at Robyn with a Y Goldberg RDN.
perfect. And I will be sure to tag all that for people so they can find you easily. And thank you again so much for your time and your wisdom.
Thank you for inviting me. It was great speaking with you, Lana.
Always. Bye.